Hillary Clinton just got the news she was dreading. Leaked documents, insider betrayals, and a political storm she can't escape. The empire she built is collapsing, and she knows it. What happens next? If you are ready to see the truth, the media will not show. Hit like, subscribe, and tell us. Do you think Hillary will finally face justice? Washington is in chaos. The walls are closing in, and at the center of it all, Hillary Clinton, scrambling, desperate, out of moves. The story broke just hours ago, but already the damage is spreading like wildfire. A leak has hit the internet, and this is not some minor political blunder. This is massive. It is bigger than emails, bigger than Benghazi, bigger than anything she has faced before. The kind of scandal that does not just threaten careers, it ends them. Inside Clinton's inner circle, panic has set in. Phones are ringing non-stop. Lawyers are being called in. Advisors are scrambling to put out the fire. But there is no stopping this now. The documents are out. The evidence is real. And the American people? They are watching it all unfold in real time. The media is doing everything they can to contain it. CNN is ignoring it. The New York Times is pretending it does not exist. Twitter fact-checkers are already in overdrive, trying to discredit the source. But it is too late. The truth is spreading, and no amount of damage control can put this genie back in the bottle. For years, Hillary Clinton operated as if she was untouchable. She thought she was above consequences, above the law. But now, for the first time, she is facing something she cannot spin, cannot silence, and cannot escape. The media will not cover it. The establishment is terrified. But we have the receipts. Let's break it down. At exactly 6:04 a.m., the first file appeared online. No warning, no build-up, just a sudden, explosive drop. Within seconds, everything changed. The leak contained internal memos, financial records, and emails. Not just any emails. These were documents that exposed illegal financial deals, election interference, and a cover-up so deep that it could shake Washington to its core. The source? Anonymous. The impact? Immediate. Hillary Clinton's team was blindsided. Calls started pouring in. Lawyers were woken up before their morning coffee. Damage control meetings were scheduled before anyone even understood what had happened. But behind closed doors, they all knew. This was not just a hit piece. This was not some political attack they could brush off. This was evidence, hard proof. And it was out in the open. Washington insiders had been expecting a scandal to break. There were whispers of investigations, hints of something big coming. But no one, not even Clinton's closest allies, saw this coming. The sheer scale of the leak was beyond anything they had imagined. The financial records were detailed. The election tampering was undeniable. The cover-up was there in black and white. Now the question everyone was asking, who leaked it? Some pointed fingers at former staffers, people who had once been loyal to the Clintons but had seen the writing on the wall. Others suspected an intelligence leak, something far beyond the reach of political operatives. There were even rumors that someone inside the DNC had flipped, desperate to avoid being dragged down with her. The media tried to stall. The usual talking heads on CNN and MSNBC scrambled for explanations. Fact-checkers rushed to label it misinformation. But it was useless. The files were real, and too many people had already seen them. On social media, it was chaos. Hillary Exposed started trending within an hour. Thousands of people were downloading the documents, saving them, making sure they could not be wiped from the internet. Clinton's team needed a plan. Fast. They considered denying everything. But the documents were too detailed. They thought about calling it Russian disinformation. But even former allies were hesitant to push that narrative again. So they did what they always did. Tried to bury it. They reached out to their contacts in big tech, flagging posts, suspending accounts, slowing the spread of information. But no matter how fast they worked, the truth was moving faster. By noon, the cracks were showing. Even some left-wing journalists started asking questions. How deep did this go? Who else was involved? How long had this been hidden? Hillary Clinton, who had spent decades navigating scandals, now faced the one thing she had always feared: evidence she could not erase. And just when she thought it could not get worse, it did. The moment the leak hit the internet, something strange happened. Silence. No breaking news alerts. No front-page story in the New York Times. No frantic panels on CNN or MSNBC. Just a cold, uneasy silence. The kind that only happens when the people in charge do not know what to do. The kind that tells you they are stalling, trying to figure out how to bury a story before it spins out of control. Inside the highest levels of media and politics, panic was setting in. Within hours, Clinton's team was on the phone with major outlets, pressuring them to hold back coverage. Producers were warned. Editors were given strict instructions. They needed time to come up with an explanation, something, anything, to shift the blame, discredit the source, or at the very least, confuse the public long enough to kill the momentum. At the same time, the social media crackdown began. Posts about the leak started disappearing. Accounts sharing the documents were locked or banned. The fact-checkers appeared out of nowhere, calling it unverified and potentially misleading. But there was one problem. The files were real, and too many people had already seen them. By mid-morning, the dam had started to break. Independent journalists were picking up the story. News spread through back channels, forums, and encrypted apps. People were downloading the documents, saving them, sharing them. Attempts to suppress the leak were only making it more suspicious. For every post taken down, 10 more popped up. It was too late. The truth was already out. Inside media headquarters, damage control meetings were happening behind closed doors. The usual voices, journalists, anchors, political strategists, were all asking the same question. What do we say? They could not ignore it forever. They had to come up with a narrative before things got worse. They tried the usual tricks. Some called it Russian disinformation. Others said it was taken out of context. But none of those excuses held up. This was not some conspiracy theory floating around on the internet. These were official documents, signed and dated, backed by financial records that anyone could verify. And the public was not buying the spin. By early afternoon, cracks started to appear in the media wall. A few journalists, ones who still had a shred of integrity, began asking real questions. They knew if they ignored the story, they would lose whatever credibility they had left. The pressure was building. Hillary's team needed a distraction. Fast. They pushed out an unrelated scandal, trying to flood the news cycle with something, anything, that would pull attention away. But it did not work. The leak was all anyone cared about. And then, the receipts started rolling in, and suddenly, no one could hide. If you can feel the walls closing in on Hillary, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and comment. Who do you think will turn on her next? The media tried to contain the damage, but it was useless. The floodgates had opened, the documents were out, and there was no stopping what came next. People started digging, and what they found was worse than anyone had imagined. The financial records, the wire transfers, the offshore accounts, it was all there. This was not just a mistake or bad bookkeeping. This was a coordinated, deliberate operation designed to funnel millions through fake organizations, all to protect Hillary, Clinton, and her allies. The money trail was undeniable. Leaked bank records showed direct payments between Democratic elites and foreign donors. These were not small amounts. Millions had been moved through nonprofit groups, shell companies, and hidden accounts, all disguised as political donations, consulting fees, or foreign aid. But in reality, it was nothing more than a slush fund, used to pay off the right people and keep the machine running. Then came the emails. The files contained internal DNC communications that left no room for doubt. Journalists were not just biased. They were on the payroll. Government agencies were pressured, manipulated, and used to protect certain political figures while destroying others. Talking points were fed to the media, and stories were killed before they could see the light of day. For years, the American people had been lied to, not by accident, but by design. But the real bombshell? One name kept appearing in the documents, over and over, buried in financial records, emails, and secret memos. Barack Obama. His involvement was not speculation. The files linked him directly to the operation. As president, he had helped set up the networks that allowed this corruption to thrive. Even after leaving office, his influence remained. He had been pulling the strings behind the scenes, making sure his allies stayed in power and his enemies were taken out. This was bigger than just Hillary. This was not just about one election or one administration. The entire Democratic power structure was implicated. The reaction was instant. People who had once defended Clinton went silent. Former Obama officials refused to comment. Even journalists who had spent years protecting the establishment started to distance themselves. They knew what was coming, and they did not want to go down with the ship. This was not just a scandal. This was the kind of corruption that could bring down an entire party. The kind that would not just end careers, it could send people to prison. And then, the true panic began. If this story is touching your heart right now, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. The Democratic National Committee was in full meltdown. Panic spread through every level of leadership. High-profile Democrats who once stood by Hillary Clinton were nowhere to be found. They were not defending her. They were not making statements. They were ghosting her. The silence was deafening. Barack Obama, the man who had quietly backed Clinton for years, suddenly distanced himself. No public statements, no press appearances, not even a vague show of support. Pelosi, Schumer, and Kamala Harris did the same. The same people who once praised Hillary now acted like she did not exist. Behind closed doors, they were desperate to avoid getting dragged down with her. Then came the leaked calls, private conversations. From inside, Hillary's crisis team were exposed. The audio was clear. Her top advisors were in full panic mode, scrambling to find a way to shut this down. We need to stop this now. If this keeps spreading, we are finished. Their voices were shaky. They were not just trying to control the story. They were trying to cover something up. They discussed calling in favors from media allies and pressuring big tech to censor posts faster. They even considered targeting journalists who refused to follow the script. But it was clear. They were losing control. The leak was too big, and too many people were watching. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice was being forced to act. For years, the FBI and DOJ had looked the other way. Investigations into Clinton always seemed to stall or disappear. But now, DOJ insiders confirmed that this time, things were different. The evidence was overwhelming. The public outrage was growing. And inside the Justice Department, the pressure to act was too great to ignore. Then came the final blow. Hillary's biggest allies started flipping. People who had spent years protecting her were suddenly cooperating with investigators. Some were leaking more documents. Others were agreeing to testify in exchange for legal protection. This was not just an investigation anymore. This was a reckoning, and the moment Hillary feared most was finally here. And she had no escape. Hillary Clinton finally responded, but it was exactly what everyone expected. A pathetic, rehearsed statement calling the entire scandal another right-wing attack. She blamed misinformation, political games, and media bias. But this time, nobody was buying it. Online, the reaction was brutal. Hillary arrested, shot to the top of social media within hours. The comments flooded in. Conservatives celebrated. Moderates nodded in agreement. Even former Democrats admitted it was over. For years, they defended her. Now, they were watching the truth unfold in real time. Inside her private office, Hillary sat alone, eyes locked on the television. The screen flickered with breaking news, a DOJ press conference. The headline scrolled across the bottom. DOJ confirms criminal investigation into Clinton Foundation. She did not move. She did not speak. She just stared. For the first time in her career, there was no way out. No connections to pull, no media spin to save her. The power she once held was gone. The Clinton dynasty finished. And as the world watched, one thing became clear. This was not just another scandal. This was justice. The camera faded to black, but the story was far from over. This is the moment we have all been waiting for, and it is only the beginning. If you made it this far, you know this is bigger than just one person. Like this. Video, subscribe, and tell us, who else do you think should be held accountable?